everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Powerful Stuff. Powerful Stuff is your one-stop shop for inner and outer connection, as I like to say. And this week, I am back in Los Angeles after 5 months of being away in Peru, Bolivia, Brazil, Puerto Rico, Dominica, Panama, Mexico, Houston, San Francisco, and we are back, baby. I just had my Minotti's coffee. Shout out Minotti's. I fucking love you. Best coffee ever. If you guys are listening, sponsor Powerful Stuff. And I'm so excited to be back here with you guys. We have some big things in store for Powerful Stuff and the direction of Powerful Stuff with the podcast, the experiences, the coaching. It's all happening. And today's episode, we are actually going to just blow wide open our worldview by getting rid of a few little sneaky blocks. We're going to talk about assumptions and how they limit what is possible for us. And they can also kind of be the different side of the same coin of either or thinking, if you will, and how we can turn those assumptions into the gray area of yes and vision from this place. I was talking to a few people this last week, some clients, and also even myself, like thinking about my own assumptions about coming back to LA, certain relationships in LA, what my next launch will be like. It's easy when we have past data points or just like this is how things always were to actually make the assumptions feel like they're part of our current reality. Like I assume that I can't be both of these things at the same time. Or, as I've told you guys, and I'm starting to think about motherhood, like what are my assumptions there around what it will mean for my career or, what I think it'll mean in terms of my dynamic with my husband, right? These are all things to examine and look at and be like, is that an empowered choice or is that an assumption that I'm falling back on that's actually limiting my perception of what's possible? Because I've had a few people talk to me the last few weeks and, when they're visioning for this next chapter, they're like, Meredith, what do I do when I have like two different opposing things that I want? And then my question to them was actually, and it's also so funny when I get asked these questions by other people or clients, because oftentimes it's a reminder of what I need to tell myself. But I was like, my first step would be asking you, why are they opposing? Why do you think that they're opposing? Do you know that for sure? Is that a fact? Or could they coexist? What's keeping you from believing that they could coexist? For example, I either have a really successful business and I'm grinding all the time, or I'm kind of like, having a wide open schedule, but I'm not making any money and I feel completely untethered. Or I'm either, an incredible mom and wife, or I have the best career ever, or I'm either, going back to LA in these certain friend groups and this is how it is in those friend groups, or I have a completely different new life in LA. And these are all just kind of like ones that are examples to get your wheels turning, a little bit of some of the stuff I've been thinking about or things that people have, mentioned to me in the past few weeks. And it's interesting when we have these assumptions because they're so sneaky. We don't even realize that they're happening. Or I assume that if I make more money, it'll also mean more time in the office and like even less balance in my life. So the reason that we have these assumptions, like I said, is because maybe we've had a past data point that we've just kind of continued to take into the present day and assume is fact. It also, as I said in past episodes, assumptions help us predict. And our inner child just loves consistency. They just love it. They just love being able to predict things. It makes them feel safe when there's consistency. And so we create these assumptions because it's safer to live in the black or white for our inner child sometimes, bless their little hearts. And we, as their protector, like sometimes just take those assumptions as fact. And like, isn't this easier to kind of assume these things, even though our intellectual or our highest self is like, oh, that doesn't really feel good. Like, I don't actually want that. But when we're focused so much on what we don't want or what we think isn't possible, it's kind of like the universe gives us more of that, like Rhonda Byrne's book, The Secret, like what we think about becomes reality. Obviously, this is a very generalized, approach to that. So when we're looking at assumptions, and I love to address these things. I love to address the blocks because that means we can remove them. That means we can convert them into stepping stones. So when you're looking at like maybe this next thing that you want to create in your life, let's do step one together, which is just like what are all of my assumptions about this thing? What are my assumptions around what I have to sacrifice? What are my assumptions around what other people will think? What are my assumptions around, how that'll be for me or my relationship or my potential relationship? So I just want you to go ahead and write down all of the assumptions, even though part of you might be like, oh, but is this fact? Is this how it's going to go? I want you to really be like, if I don't know 1,000% for sure, it's an assumption. And we'll just take a moment and we'll write down all of those assumptions with no judgment, just curiosity. And you can pause the recording and we're back. Okay, now that we have the assumptions, now we're really just on an archaeological dig here today. Now I want you to ask yourself, where did these assumptions come from? Why do I believe this? What part of my past, my adolescence, my early 20s, did I come to think this was fact? What past data points did I somehow then just make into this blanket statement of either this or that? And so maybe by each assumption, you can kind of write, where did I get this from? Where did I get this belief from? Why did I assume this in the past? Why is it maybe, my inner child would think that it's kept me safe or it's just easier to predict? And so just with curiosity, writing down where you might have created these assumptions. So when you do that too, if you're having trouble thinking of where it came from, close your eyes and take a few breaths and hold that assumption in your mind's eye. And then kind of imagine that you're stepping into an elevator and asking the elevator to show you when it opens the doors to a new scene, asking it to show you a scene where that assumption might have come from, and trusting whatever scene comes up for you when you open those doors, trusting that that's the scene where your inner child might have learned that. And maybe you can even see the scene play out. Maybe you can even have a conversation with your inner child around it and see what they need to feel safe to loosen their grip of control around this assumption. So now that you've addressed so maybe pause the recording again to write down those, but where you got those beliefs, maybe do that exercise with the elevator and have that conversation with your inner child. And then when you reopen your eyes, let's kind of face how this assumption might be actually keeping us from what we want. What is it that we actually want? And what is the cost of believing this assumption? What is the cost 10, 20, 30 years down the line if we think that it has to be either this or that? What is that stealing from us in terms of our own joy or our own fulfillment? What is that stealing from maybe our friends, our partner, our families? What is that stealing from the world in general, for us to kind of be put in this black or white box where we can't, experience a different alternative? So just noticing what the cost is and really sitting with that, imagining yourself when you're 80 years old and what the cost would be if you kept believing this assumption, if you never challenged it, if you just took it as fact. So after I give all these steps, you can always pause the recording and answer them. But yeah, just as an example for the cost for some of the things that I talked about before, the assumption, let's say, is the motherhood thing of either I have an incredible career or I'm a, great mom who spends a lot of present time with my kids. Maybe that assumption, the cost in the long run. And by the way, motherhood and all of this is just an example of a thought someone might have, but it's such an individual and personal journey for all of us. But I'm just giving an example, using this as an example. So maybe the cost would be if in my heart's desire, I wanted to have both, but I assume that I can't, right? Then it robs you of, your purpose and fulfillment in different areas, which actually also could potentially rob your children of getting to see you fulfilled and expressed in all areas, which is probably a hope or wish that you have for them as well. And so it kind of creates this opportunity cost in both areas, actually, both in your professional life and in your family life, because maybe you're then not feeling as fulfilled, or you're feeling more resentful in your family life. Or if you leaned into the fully working one and not having kids, or feeling like you couldn't spend time with them, then it obviously robs you of the quality time that you would want with your kids. So these are just, that's just kind of an example of the either or. And I've definitely kind of challenged my own assumptions as I start to think about motherhood as well. And where am I assuming things versus just allowing things to play out and getting clear about what I want? So now that we've acknowledged the cost, you can kind of tie a nice little bow on this side of the episode by writing what these either or beliefs are. So we've acknowledged the assumptions, we acknowledge where they came from, and we've acknowledged the cost. So I want you to just tie a nice little bow on it by succinctly writing what the either or beliefs are, which, for the one I just used, the either or belief would be either I'm a great mom, or I am an incredible businesswoman with a blossoming career. That's the either or belief. And we can see, because of all this background work that we just did, how limiting it is and how it could really like thwart or distort our perceptions of what's possible in some of our decision making framework if we really, adhere to that belief. So go ahead and write all of those either ors and just notice, like, now that we've acknowledged kind of the deeper background of it, what the cost is if we believe that. Now that we've challenged these assumptions, or we're, I guess, excavating them, getting ready to challenge them. And so on the other side of this, guys, we get to do the yes and the yes and is so powerful. I've talked about it all the time. I have a whole episode on yes and, but it really allows us to move from the black or white thinking into the gray area of like, what if I can have both? And it's kind of like this idea, like I just said, the other side of the coin of, what we focus on, we get more of. If we focus on all the limitations, we get more limitations. But if we focus on the possibilities, you guessed it, we get more possibilities. And isn't that a beautiful thing? And this is something I need to remind myself all the time. I'm like doing it internally in my own head for my own things as I return to LA, my own perceptions of what I thought coming back would be like and entering this next chapter. So all of that's to say, now that we've written out the either ors, I want you to go through each either or and write the yes and. Yes, I can be a mother, an incredible mother, and an incredible businesswoman. Yes, I can still like appreciate and love those people and have like a morphing, or like a new friendship with them in a different way. Whatever your yes ands are, yes, I can do what I love and make a lot of money, and I can still have balance and go on vacation and be able to shut off at night and just like enjoy and relax. Yes, I can be like an incredible businesswoman, and I can also share my creative work. Whatever those yes ands are, even if it feels like weird or unfamiliar to say, even if you notice your internal voice being like, but can you? Go ahead and write those yes ands anyways. And we're going to just do a little meditation on the other side of writing those yes ands, because when we actually get clear on like removing the assumptions, a whole new world opens up. And as we can start to tap into the feeling of what would it feel like to, okay, we'll actually finish off the steps and then we'll do the meditation. So once you've written the yes ands, I want you to write out like what it would feel like to be living in those yes ands. I would feel expansive. I would feel empowered. I would feel energized, like starting to get a clear idea of who is that you who's not living in those assumptions, who is living in the yes and. How would that even be crazy possible? Like, how expansive would that feel? And it might feel like funny or uncomfortable, right? Because maybe you're upgrading your belief system to accommodate that. And so maybe it feels a little scary, like you're skiing down a hill at 100 miles an hour. That's okay. It should feel a little funny or scary or like a little bit new and strange, because you are expanding your belief system. So that means you're doing it right. So once you've tapped into the feeling after the yes and, then it's like, you guys know, if you listen to powerful stuff, my loyal listeners, you know what I'm going to say next? Like, what is the action? What is the one thing that you could do this week to actually step into that belief, to step into that feeling? So even if like the career in motherhood feels like, a few years away, if the feeling is like, I would feel expansive and full of possibility, what's something that you could do this week to tap into that feeling? And also it could be to tap into it, and I highly recommend this, is talking to expanders, people who are example of that particular yes and. Like maybe you have a friend who's an incredible mother whose career you also admire. Maybe you have a friend who like has an incredible business and also like, is very relaxed and treats themselves to vacations and has a very balanced life. Maybe you talk to them. How did they do it? How did they set up for that? What beliefs of theirs did they have to release and transform? So part of tapping into the feeling and then maybe taking that aligned action is talking to some of these expanders and showing your subconscious it's possible for you. And the more people that we can talk to or be around like that, the more possible it seems for us. And so that's even to note when you are feeling comparison to someone that like, oh, is there something expansive, or are they living one of these yes ands that I can like say thank you to the universe. Thank you, thank you, thank you for showing me this person and putting them in my field so I can really experience the power of the yes and as well. Okay. So just to sum it up, TLDR, before we do a little meditation, and I'm going to give it to short and sweet this meditation so you can come back to it anytime you notice an assumption and we can transform it into a yes and. But yeah, just step 1 is noticing the assumptions. Where are you making these assumptions? Step 2, where did they come from? Acknowledging where you might have learned them. Step 3 is what is the cost if you don't change them, and really sitting with that ickiness if you don't change them and you let the assumptions rule your world. Step 4 is writing them into that nice, tidy either or statement. So then step 5, you can turn it around of what does the yes and look like from the either or. And then step 6, how can you tap into that feeling? What would it feel like to be living from that place of yes and? It would be wild and crazy and oh my gosh. And then step 7, what is that aligned action that you can take? You guys know that I love to hit you with the steps. It's powerful. It's powerful stuff. Okay, so close your eyes, take a deep breath in. Open mouth, exhale, sigh it out. Another breath in. Exhale, let it go. Third and deepest breath in. Exhale, release. And just bringing something to your mind's eye where you have an assumption. And you can maybe tell it's an assumption if you think either I have to choose this or that, or there are two opposing beliefs and I feel torn. Just noticing how that feels to have to choose, how that thought of feeling like you have to choose feels. Noticing where you have the tightness in your body. Is it your chest, your throat? Starting to breathe curiosity to that, noticing maybe the assumption as like a root and getting down to the bottom of the root, where it was coming from, whether it's your background, your culture, how you were raised, things that you saw growing up, just noticing it almost like you're detached from it, just noticing how that belief might have gotten stuck. And almost like we're dislodging the belief, put your hands there on that part of your body where you feel the belief. Just go ahead and take it out, pull it out of your body, pulling out all the stuckness of the either or. And then go ahead and rub your hands together, start rubbing them together like you're transforming this block, this belief, rubbing them together, feeling the heat, and then opening your hands up and seeing and feeling the beautiful yes and of possibility. The yes and the what if. What if it was all possible? What if I could do it all? What if I had blinders on, but actually these things are possible? With both hands bringing that yes and that energy back into your body, breathing into the expansiveness. Breathe in the yes of one thing. Take another sip of air for the and of the other, holding them both, making space for both of them in your lungs, and exhale, allowing them both to coexist. Another breath of the yes of one thing, another of the and, holding them both. And then exhale, feeling the space of both of them in your body. Third time, breathing in the yes, breathing in the and, holding them both. And exhale, feeling them both. They coexist in your body. And as you take nice, slow breaths with both the yes and the and, asking your body, your intuition to just show you in your mind's eye a glimpse of your life living in this yes and. Noticing your energy, how you move through your day, how you speak to other people from this place of possibility, how you speak to yourself, your relationship to your work or money, in this yes and in this expansiveness, your relationship to your loved ones, whether it's your partner, your family, your kids, your friends, and how you living in this yes and actually creates this golden light emanating from you, serving as a beacon, giving other people permission to live in their yes and, breathing into that expansiveness, and then asking you in this yes and land for the perfect next step to step into this belief, thanking them, feeling that truth, and then taking a deep breath in, exhale, let it go, another deep breath in, exhale, coming back into this space, opening your eyes. Wow, we did so much in 30 minutes. It's crazy what 30 minutes can do to challenge assumptions, alchemize them, and transform them into possibility and what if. So my wish for you this week is to notice where you're having assumptions or limitations and to challenge them with compassion and curiosity. And then to ask yourself, what would the yes and be like? What permission do I need to give myself to be there? And also, as I like to say in other episodes, how can I make my inner child feel safe to know that they are safe to expand, that I'm going to not go anywhere. I'll always be with them, even if taking the next step feels scary. And having that reminder and that trust in ourselves is so freaking important as we step into what comes next. And I want to hear how this goes for you all. Let me know. And also, as I mentioned in past episodes, I'm launching my 10th upgrade cohort for women. We start late April. I'm so freaking excited. We already have a few amazing women in it. It's 12 weeks to transform your beliefs, your life, and to step into that next empowered version of you. So you're really leading from a place of your intuition, of your power, of feeling so centered and confident in yourself from the inside out. So if you're interested, email me at themeredithbaker.com so we can set up a discovery call and see if it's the right fit and get you into the upgrade and upgrading. And I will see you all next week for more powerful stuff.